I was muted. Everyone's muted. GM fam, welcome back to another episode of Metaverse Spotlight. Today we are going to be talking with MIKÞR and Nova about their AIP proposal that they just submitted. It's in the idea phase right now. So we're going to be talking through it, figuring out what the heck they're doing, because it looks pretty cool to me. And then if anyone has any questions, obviously feel free, chime in the chat and we will address those. This is, like I said, it's in the idea phase, so any questions and comments and whatnot would be much appreciated, because I'm sure you guys are molded and all that fun stuff. But anyways, let's start by first saying, what's up, guys? How y'all doing?
What's up, Crafter? Doing
Yo,
good.
yo.
Doing good. Yeah.
Hey,
Great to be back on here.
Hell yeah. Always good chatting with you, MIKÞR, and great to have Nova on for the first time. We do plan on getting Nova on behind the avatar at some point too, so that'll be fun.
Absolutely, guys. Good evening to both of you. Excited to be here.
Heck yeah. Let's start actually by just giving people a quick little intro for both of you, just for people that don't know who y'all are, and then we can dive on into the conversation about the AIP.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm happy to go first. Hey, everybody. My name is Leo, also known as Nova, here in the Web3 world. I am the co-founder of Vora Labs, as well as other guild. Been now Web2 now for a couple of years. Well, I guess 2017 technically, if you kind of count the first time I ever bought some kind of crypto. Before kind of entering Web3, I spent a few years, just like right after, like shortly after college, I kind of joined the corporate world, then, left because I just hated consulting, moved to San Francisco and, started a small game design company that produced a number of, early Facebook and iOS games. And then from there, I moved to SaaS, where I spent the last 8 years as a growth marketing executive for a number of different SaaS companies. Primarily, I would say seed stage to Series B kind of stage of venture funded companies in the kind of MarTech, e-com, and cloud computing verticals. Was lucky enough to go through a couple acquisitions kind of towards the kind of beginning of COVID that kind of fueled the startup acquisition frenzy. So it gave me some room to kind of jump to a new industry and really just dive into Web3 full time. And yeah, really love it here. And met Mike, last year. Just really enjoy getting to know him as well. And we started this little joint venture that we're currently exploring for the AIP. So
Heck yeah.
Maybe I'll pause there, Mike, and you can jump in.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I'm Mike. Alias is MIKÞR because I'm super original on Twitter. My background is computer science and aerospace engineering originally, but I got into kind of like creative agencies, web development, software studios, kind of small startups that I founded probably about 10 years ago. Had some moderate success there, and then after that, pretty much dove into crypto head first. I was doing some crypto mining and things, dabbling in that on the side. But yeah, in 2017, 2016, started another company called Radar Relay, which was one of the first decentralized exchanges on Ethereum, actually on the 0x protocol, which we grew pretty fast. We raised a whole bunch of money in venture capital, and then it got acquired a few years after that. And since then, actually just like really interested in NFTs, even kind of before they were called that. So I've just been really excited to dabble in the NFT world and see what we could accomplish there. And yeah, since meeting Leo, we've been focused on how we can basically take some of the blockchain knowledge kind of on our side and then the game knowledge on his side and mash it together. And so far we've had some pretty good success, and we're hoping that this AIP is kind of like taking it to the next level. So
heck yeah, I love that. And for those of you that want to get to know MIKÞR a little bit more, If you go to my YouTube and scroll back a little bit, he was on Behind the Avatar not that long ago. And like I said, Annie's going to be coming on pretty soon. I forget when, maybe in 2 weeks or so, for another episode. And like I said, also Nova is also planning on coming on at some point, so you'll be able to get to know each of them a little bit more there. But today, I really do want to focus on what you guys have come together to start working on, which is this awesome AIP that you have submitted into the ApeCoin DAO. For those of you that don't know about the ApeCoin DAO, I guess ApeCoin.com would probably be a good place to start your research. And if you want to check out like the AIPs and stuff, you could go to forum.apecoin.com to see all the different AIPs that are in or being submitted or wherever they are in the different processes. But the ApeCoin DAO basically is a grants DAO. So their business, I guess you could say, is giving money to people that are doing dope stuff for the ApeCoin ecosystem, basically, in a nutshell. And I think that what you guys are doing with this proposal is definitely something that they should be granting money for and pushing forward, because it's something that seems like it's super needed. And I guess I'll let you guys kind of start by, I've done my research as far as reading through this a couple times, but I think it'll be easier if you guys kick it off by just kind of explaining what the AIP is all about, and then we can kind of dive into all the little nitty gritties about it.
Sure. Yeah, Leo, do you want to give the high level?
Absolutely. Yeah, sure. So we don't have an AIP number yet. It's still in the idea phase. So for now, we can't give an AIP number. But essentially, what we're trying to build here is a no-code, low-code platform that allows, kind of gives you all the required infrastructure for ApeCoin-powered payments and rewards for games. And really, we want to primarily focus on kind of two verticals, which is mobile games as well as browser games. And then starting initially with Unity, and then from there, kind of, expand the SDK to other different, devices as well. So the platform consists of kind of three key components. The first one being kind of a series of Web3 modules that allows you to be able to integrate ApeCoin to games and do, a few other things. The second is platform as an APIs and SDKs, and the third one's being a Web3 player network. And we can kind of dive in, deeper into each one of those. Before we kind of, go forward, Crafter, any kind of questions before we dive in?
I mean, one thing that I'll point out that I think you guys are definitely on the right track for, or that like stood out to me, is making this part. Problem number 2, the wallet creating Web3 wallets. I think that is something that I've always noticed and thought is going to be maybe the biggest hurdle for getting players onboarded into the gaming ecosystem that will be Web3 gaming. And I guess this was just like the first question that popped in my head is like, how are you guys approaching that? Like, will the players even know that they're creating a wallet or have a wallet, or how does that go? Because I guess that's what I've always been curious about, is like, because I've played a few games where it like basically tells you that you're creating the wallet, and I think I've also played a couple of games where it just like hides the fact that you even have a wallet. So yeah, I don't know if that's a good place to start, but like that was like one of the initial things when I read through it. I was like, nice, like that's something that is super needed, is that hurdle, that big barrier, which
Yeah, I think it is a good place to start, kind of just laying out the 3 problems that we primarily ran into as we were trying to work through some of these things. And actually, we didn't really talk about this, but before I
Yeah.
dive into the wallet creation piece, we just to give like a tiny bit of context, we over the last, I want to say 3 months, I forget exactly when we started. Maybe you can give a concrete date, Leo, but we started discussing how we might be able to work together to integrate ApeCoin into one of Leo's games, basically a V2 of Flappy Coda. And when we started doing so, we sort of realized all the different hurdles that I imagine a lot of other companies have ran into right off the bat, which was basically the complexity of even just like pulling the information into the game, the complexity of creating a wallet for the user, and then obviously the user acquisition piece, which I won't touch on yet. But yeah, so the wallet creation I think is on everybody, like top of mind for everyone. It's kind of the number one hurdle when you're talking about, especially non-Web3 native people. And it tends to be something that people over-engineer. They either over-engineer it or they under-engineer it. And so, a very simple like MetaMask connection is common and might be fine for people who are really used to that. But then, some companies will go so far as like trying to redesign and come up with their own entire, encryption system with like a lot of complexity in the background. I think sometimes that's too far as well. So what we're trying to do is kind of strike a balance, and we're taking some, I guess, inspiration from various platforms that we've seen over the last few months, and even some of the SDKs, some of the platforms that are out there that are already doing this, like Third Web and Sequence and some of these other platforms. But the approach that we want to take to actually get to something tangible here is basically a spectrum. So you'll be able to kind of choose if you want it to be more of that fairly straightforward. I just want it to be like a standard dApp connect MetaMask. Players can, connect their wallet, maybe connect Discord. We link those two things together and you are into your game. So that's like level one kind of requirement for authentication. And then we want it to be a spectrum of, based on what players are going to be playing the game. So if it's brand new Web 2 people, then we may totally hide the wallet completely in the background, like you mentioned. So we may give like, the game developers an option to basically create, the idea is sort of, it's like wallet abstraction. So we would actually create a on-chain smart contract wallet, and this would be happening in the background. And then we would give them a key that is actually still self-custodied through either their browser or through their mobile app. And then they wouldn't see it, but when they sign in, they could sign in with Google or, the standard authentication, maybe just an email and a password. And we would generate that wallet that they could potentially later on make use of or export or move into the Web3 world once they're comfortable with that. So that's a lot, but the idea is basically a spectrum. We want there to be some optionality in how it gets implemented based on what the game developer decides.
I think that makes sense, and because I guess you would hope that the game developer kind of has an idea of what their client or player base would be expecting, I guess, or maybe already be familiar with. Because if you're creating a game that is just going to be people that are already in Web3 world, you probably don't have to worry about creating something more than just connecting. Like we as in Web3 natives know that it's super simple once you get used to it, how to use MetaMask or whatever. But if you're creating a game that maybe you're bringing your audience that was Web 2 and trying to kind of transition them into the Web3 world of gaming, it would make sense to then have like more layers to it, I guess. So I think that's cool that you're going to try and make it so that it could be a multitude of different things. What was the difficulties that you guys were running into in the beginning you realized that that developing stuff like this for games is difficult? Like, what were some of the sticking points that you guys came across as far as figuring out how to integrate any sort of like Web3 stuff into these games?
Yeah, there's a number of things, and Leo, feel free to jump in if I miss anything or you have something else to say. But I think one of the main things that we ran into really early on is that even though there are a bunch of things out there, APIs and SDKs for you to use Web3, they still kind of require this like fundamental blockchain knowledge, like understanding how a blockchain works, right? If you're not familiar with it, then you don't know that you have to like, for example, to like retrieve an address or a current token balance. You don't necessarily know that you have to like actually have, the contract state on and go through an RPC call, go to the blockchain and pull that information down. It's just a very different paradigm than most people are used to. So we realized that just to retrieve data from, a blockchain, especially if you have custom smart contracts or anything like that, you need a much more standardized way to do it. So we can kind of wrap things and put them into a more standard like REST API format so that people can pull the information in that way. So that was one. And then related to that, a lot of things happen kind of asynchronously or in real time. And surprisingly, it can be somewhat difficult to actually just listen to a blockchain and kind of like wait for the events to happen. So let's say somebody purchases an item with ApeCoin, you're actually technically polling the blockchain, which means, for those of you who are not developers, polling means like, I wait 3 seconds, I check the blockchain, I see if the data is there. I wait 3 seconds, I check again, check again, check. You just do that periodically until the data shows up, which is like kind of a expensive thing to do and not super intuitive for most game developers. So one of the other things is basically like an event system so that we could actually simplify the process of having to like listen to those things occurring. So when transactions are done, when someone's purchased something, things like that. So I think that's kind of the first data piece. And then obviously all the wallet things we just talked about.
Mm-hmm.
We had a very quick realization that templates, or I guess implementing front end sort of wallet connection through Unity is definitely not very simple. You have to kind of build all of it from scratch, even though it seems like maybe there's some things out there. You still end up having to kind of like fit it into this box, especially if you have a pre-existing game that is pretty difficult to do. So we wanted to make it easier to kind of drag and drop or like put Unity type templates together to where all that stuff is just done and working, and you don't have to think about it for the wallet connection piece.
I think that's a good. Well, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to clarify a little bit too. Right now, we're working on with Flappy Coda. It's a WebGL Unity build, which basically means you build the game in Unity and then you kind of like compile it so it works for a website format. So that's the main format that we're currently working on, which makes it a little bit easier to connect a wallet. As soon as you get into like mobile or like hosting it yourself, then those things get even more complicated. So I think that's another sort of a big hurdle that is going to be difficult for a lot of people.
I'm looking, I gotta switch screens here so people can see what I'm looking at. I'm looking at these modules that you guys are talking about in the AIP, and is like from a non-developer side, like are these things that like basically would be like drag and drop for somebody that's developing the game? Like for example, like this is what I'm thinking, like if I want somebody to be able to click this button and connect my wallet, there's like something in here that they could grab, Well, I think I see it right now as I'm scrolling over it, embed wallet. I don't know if that's right or not, but like they would like drag that or take the code or whatever. How how this works, I have no idea. But is that what these like modules are for? Is like different like common use cases that people would need to do inside of a game that now is simplified, so they don't have to actually have the knowledge of blockchain stuff to make blockchain stuff happen inside of their game? Is that,
Yep.
am I on the right track?
Yeah, definitely. That's basically the idea. So you kind of start by like configuring your game. So you would maybe pick like some colors and some images and some things that would be like a matching theme for your game. Then you would enable these modules, and there's some like settings that would go in there, like for the NFT minter, for example, or for the ApeCoin payments. You might choose what you might, if you're more sophisticated, you may choose, hey, I have this like wallet and I want all the payments to wind up in this wallet. So I can plug in my fee address, my fee recipient address, for example. So you'd click on one of these modules and it would pop up like a configuration screen, which is just like fields you fill out and a few things you do. And then when you save it, depending on the framework that you're going to be doing, so let's just say WebGL for now, for the sake of simplicity. In Unity, we would actually spit out a compiled template for you that you can actually upload and basically drag and drop into your Unity editor. So you already have it's called an IDE, your Unity IDE, which you're working out of to build your game. And once you make this connection, you download this template and you drag and drop and throw it into the game. And then, there's a few more configuration things you kind of have to do within the game, things that you're used to doing if you're a Unity developer. And then once you've done that, the connection's done. So all of the blockchain stuff just works and it sort of integrates into the platform.
Gotcha. And like all those things are where the normal non-Web3 developers wouldn't have any idea how to do that. Like that's what this is solving, right? Is that they don't have to learn how to do blockchain coding. It's just plugging it into what they already know how to do.
Yep.
Easy.
That's the idea.
Yeah. That I mean, that makes sense. And that's like what, like in the beginning of all of this, you said you wanted it to be like a no code or low code solution to integrating Web3 into games. So that makes sense. That's the direction you're going with like the modules and stuff.
It'd be convenient if we could use one of those terms, either no code or low code. But unfortunately, like the interface you're looking at here would be the no code side. And pretty much no matter what, there's going to be a level of code that you would have to do, hence the low code side. But
yeah, I mean, probably I think like a low code is more accurate than no code because it's definitely coding required. But I think from just like a setup perspective, for like the developer UI, you can configure some things with no code, like Mike was saying. But to actually integrate the platform into your game, it does require coding. So there's just if you're a developer building games, chances are you probably know how to code at least a little bit.
Right.
Yeah.
You would think.
Yeah.
Go ahead if you're going to say something, but.
No, and one thing I'll also add with just on top of what Mike said too is I do think that there's definitely a lot of tools already out there that do some of these things. I do think like Mike was saying too that there's definitely a lot of these tools are complicated, so they do require I would say at least some blockchain knowledge, which I think a lot of game developers just don't have. I also do think a lot of these tools, it's going to, based on what like my developers told me, have pretty poor documentation. So they're actually going to kind of figure out how to like tie, tie all the pieces together. It takes a lot of research, and I think hopefully with our platform, we can have really good documentation and have kind of really easy to use components, just to kind of take all the guesswork out of the equation and just save developers time and money. Especially like the smaller studios, they're just to have, let's say, a single developer, just doing everything, and for them to spend, let's say, 40, 60, 100 hours on researching something to how to integrate, that could potentially like kill the project because there's just not enough time to actually do all those things.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's such a good point. I think another thing too, and both of these things are feedback actually that we've already gotten kind of through this proposal process. So it's been super helpful for us initially, or already, off the bat here. But another thing too that we've been hearing a lot, and also I've experienced, is that most of these other platforms tend to be like this full suite solution. So it's sort of like an all or nothing. You either use their platform and you kind of have to like really deeply integrate, and there's a lot of like lock-in with how that platform works to where you can't really leave. Like you'd be tied directly to their platform, and without them, your game will not work at all. And it's sort of like you have to pay for all these features that you may or may not even want. So, they might have a bunch of extra stuff that I'm not interested in, but regardless, it's kind of bundled into those platforms. And it seems to be the case with most of the platforms that we've looked into and that I've experimented with. So that's another area we just want to keep it really modular. So like if I just want Wallet Connect and I think I can figure out all the other stuff on my own, or, I'm bringing my own smart contracts, or, maybe I do have a level of Web3 sophistication, but I don't necessarily want to do all of it. Like I can pick and choose kind of an a la carte, like modular setup. So that's another area I think we really would stand out compared to some of these other platforms.
Gotcha. That, seems like that would be a benefit to be able to do some sort of a la carte with what you need and not have to pay for the stuff that you don't need. That's what I would like to see if I was in the purchasing seat of something like this. And you brought up like somebody could be bringing smart contracts with them if they have no idea how to use smart contracts or anything like that. Like, are you guys providing solutions for that as well?
Yeah, definitely. So that's one of the other, like a few of those things would be different modules, and we can continue to add new features or expand on that. But at a bare minimum, it's basically integrate ERC20, so like payment in some sort of token, integrate like a shop. So I have items I want to sell, and those items can either be off-chain or like an NFT on-chain. And that's, and then the final is like achievements or rewards. So I might want to like issue out achievements, maybe on-chain or off-chain for my players. So those will be the different types of smart contracts that we would initially support.
Yeah, and I definitely will say that the achievements part, is definitely extremely complicated. I think there's a lot of platforms right now that do the NFT minting and some of the other like wallet connection and so on. But when it comes to like on-chain achievements, there's I don't know that anyone actually currently doing it. I know games that are doing it, but I don't think there's actually a platform that currently actually has that as like a module you can license.
What makes that difficult from a developer's standpoint? The achievements.
Leo, I can jump in on kind of the technical side, but
yeah, please go ahead.
So just from like a technical perspective within your game, there might be, a million different types of triggers that would actually trigger an achievement needing to be issued. So the act of like sort of like setting up what thing would trigger when a player gets an achievement is kind of complicated, right? Because it might be like related to quests or related to discovering some place, or maybe it's a point type thing where you hit a certain level, like an accumulation. There's all these different types of triggers that might warrant an achievement. So just from like the game design perspective, it's really complicated. And then the second piece is from a blockchain perspective, unless it's on like a layer 2 solution, which also has some drawbacks, it can be really expensive because the player themselves would, if it's something where like most of us Web3 people are used to, you'd go like claim it, and you'd have to execute a transaction and pay gas and all that. And that's a terrible experience for a game. I wouldn't want to have to stop in the middle of my game and execute a transaction or sign a message in order to like receive my level up, right?
Yeah, definitely not.
Yeah, so there's a lot of complexity if you want to try to do it right. So the solution that a lot of people end up doing is that they'll just totally centralize it, and basically like put it on their server and hold the private key, and then they'll just issue out a token to people and like pay for the gas and everything all on their side. This is one way to do it, and it might be an option depending on personal preference for the game developers. But there's better, more complicated solutions that sort of allow you to act on behalf of users with them giving you permission. So this is like some account abstraction stuff and all sorts of things going on. And it's fairly complicated and also fairly new, but there are ways to do it. And it's very similar to like I guess like a token allowance, right? So when you go trade on OpenSea, I might sign one message and like give OpenSea approval to then act on my behalf to trade and transfer all my NFTs. So there's ways to do that without actually requiring the user to like execute transactions. And so that's the method that we're looking at now. And it's some research that we've actually been doing over probably the last 6 months on how to do that properly.
Right on. This is a complete tangent, but it popped in my head, so I'm going to ask it. What is the landscape as far as, because I know you're talking about browser-based games and also mobile games, and I know in the proposal you guys did touch on this, but what is the state as far as Web3 games in mobile right now, or like where do you see it going? Because I know from my awareness, like it was like not at all a thing, and then I think Google did something recently that said that they're going to start allowing it. So like I'll just let you go on that, and then I'll ask more questions if I have them.
Leo, you want to jump in on this one?
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely think like right now, there's very few games that have any kind of real user base that are offering Web3 inside of mobile applications. But we are starting to see some movement there, right? So like you were saying just now, Google has clarified their policy on Web3 and NFTs inside the games. So now you can sell NFTs directly inside the games. There's a policy on that. You can also use NFTs purchased outside the platform. So let's say, like on secondary or wherever, to be able to gate in-game experiences, inside of Google Apps. Now, you can't do it yet on iOS. I mean, you can actually sell NFTs now on iOS apps, right? But you can't actually gate experiences for NFTs purchased outside the platform. So that's something you can do on Google, like right now. There are some games now that are starting to get some traction. Probably the biggest one right now, at least the one I think has a lot going for it. I mean, granted, there's a really big brand name behind it. There's a game called NFL Rivals by Mythical Games. So it's for those of you that don't know, it's a game about just it's a football game. You can build a team. It's almost like an easier Madden you can play on your phone. It's actually a game that I personally play like a lot. I've probably spent maybe, I don't know, some like 5 to 10 hours already of my time playing that game, which for me, for a mobile game, that's a lot of time, because I'm more of a hardcore gamer, but I also do like football. So that game, the way it works is that you can actually go to their store inside the game, so like in-game shop, and like the more premium in-game items are actually NFTs, right? So you can buy those using in-app purchases, right? So when you kind of scroll over to the say, like a premium, kind of pack of cards, you can just buy it with your credit card. It's already on file with iOS or Google, and then you can essentially buy the item and then wait a few seconds and essentially be able to open that pack and see what card it has inside of it. And then from there, you can go to Mythical's marketplace, which is on a separate website, and be able to actually sell those cards on secondary and be able to cash that money out. And it's already happening today. Mythical is doing pretty decent volume already on their marketplace for this game. And they launched, I think, in April. In June, I believe they broke about 1 million downloads. It's probably on track to break, I, I don't have exact numbers, but I assume that before end of year, I think once the NFL season kicks off.
I was gonna say, once the season starts, probably see an uptick too, right?
Yeah. I mean, I could see this game breaking 10 million, 10 million downloads, potentially, maybe over 1 million active users at some point in the near future. And the biggest question now is once I think game developers realized that you can make more money with having NFTs inside your games than without them. I think once there's like a really proven case study, you really see that the floodgates open, and eventually all the game devs are going to integrate Web3 into their games. Now the margins in gaming in general, they're not massive, so it's a very competitive market. So if you have, let's say, 2 games that the player has to choose between, let's say it's 2 football games, and one football game is obviously actually going to buy cards and own the cards, and the second game does not allow you to do that. You're just going to buy the cards and they stay inside the game, and then once the game shuts down, you lose those collectibles. Like, which game are you going to go with as a player? It's the game that gives you ownership. And I think once players really understand this concept, start to really demand it, you'll see a really kind of rapid wave, kind of like what you saw, I think, with like a Facebook overnight going to becoming like every single college campus had it within like a year. So I think you're going to see a similar kind of adoption curve for Web3 and mobile games happen.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because I was going to hopefully get to that. So I'm curious, I guess, I mean, I'm bought in. I I think it just makes sense why NFTs and Web3 stuff should be integrated into games. But I know there is a huge pushback in the gamer community, and it seems like it comes more from the gamers and not so much. The more that I'm getting out there and talking to game developers that are in the Web2 world, they're definitely like curious. But I think even their question usually tends to be, like why use Web3 technology instead of just doing what they already can do. So I would love to hear your thoughts on that. I mean, you kind of already addressed it a little bit, but
yeah. So like as a gamer myself, I've been playing game for 30 years. I mean, well, I guess let's kind of take a step back and kind of just talk about first of all, like I think why gamers hate NFTs. I don't think it's because they really hate NFTs. I think they just hate scams, and I think NFTs have been associated with a lot of really bad things that happened. I think during the bull market, you saw a lot of rug pulls, a lot of cash grabs, a lot of games that raised a bunch of money, the token sales, and delivered nothing. And you do that enough times, you extract enough liquidity out of the market, and people start thinking the whole space is a big scam. But I think at the very core level, blockchain's about ownership, right? It's about kind of owning your assets, at least, or partially owning the assets inside a certain game. And I think ownership at the very core is a very compelling concept. I'll give you an example. Like, me as a gamer, I play games for 30 years. I mean, if, for example, Diablo 2 is probably a game that I sunk like over 1,000 hours into, 20 years ago when it came out. I would love to have my, let's say, like my, barbarian or whatever character I leveled up inside the game as like a collectible that I could just like flex to my friends and say, hey, like I'm actually like an OG gamer that have this, barbarian level 100, in Diablo 2, and like check it out. Like here's all, like all the cool stuff I had for it. Even if it's not like necessarily like making me money right now, like for me, it's just about ownership. It's about having that, kind of collectible item that you can actually able to save as like, as like history of you playing that game. And maybe, maybe it's worth money, maybe it's not. Like I don't think blockchain is about money; it's about ownership. And I think a lot of people that are here today are here for money. I think gamers, they're going to come in the next wave. It's going to be about ownership, and that's the concept. I think that's too compelling to just toss aside.
Yeah, I agree with that ownership sentiment. That's something that I always like think about. Like I think the easiest the easiest use case or example would be like skins in different games, like Fortnite, or I mean, Fortnite is always the one that pops in my head first, but like if Fortnite ever does go away, like think about how much money people have spent on these skins that, in my opinion, and this is like long term future oriented, but those skins should be able to not only be used in Fortnite, but you should be able to then go and hop into the other side and use those same skins inside of the other side. But right now that definitely isn't what can happen. And if Fortnite goes away or whatever, which probably won't, then where does all that money that you spend go? Like, I mean, it just goes away. I mean, it already is gone, but then you don't have anything to show for it either. So I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense for sure.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
definitely. I think personally, like the aspect of just having it be collectible, they kind of you kind of get to forever hold. Even if you can't use it in a different game in the future, I mean, I think just I think the art aspect already, I think it's compelling. But yeah, like if you're actually able to use that skin in the future in a different game, that's also great. But of course, you have to have another developer actually be able to allow that.
Right.
Fortnite, I mean, Fortnite has licensed a lot of IP from third parties as well, like
Mm-hmm.
Disney and other kind of big big companies. So
That's true. That's true.
I don't know, if you can potentially use that in other productions, but yeah, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I played World of Warcraft since the very beginning, and every single expansion I go through the process of. Actually, I don't really play it anymore, but I definitely did as a kid. And every single expansion would go through the process of like grinding it out and getting all of the max gear, like the best you possibly can, so you can do the raids and do the PvP, and like do well in it at the end. And I think back now, if NFTs were a thing, and I could at the very least like show people and have a record, like a provenance of each of my characters along the way, and like even just kind of be able to show them off, or like, um, you know, or even more dramatic of an example, which I think is something that I find really interesting and people have kind of started to talk about, but this concept of like legacy when it comes to gaming. Like my dad, he gave us some baseball cards, and they were just a bunch of cards that he collected like since he was like a kid. And there's something really cool about that. It kind of gives you this like glimpse into his life and his like collecting journey, and the things that he enjoyed to do, or he enjoyed doing. And if I could pass my World of Warcraft characters to my kids to show
Mm-hmm.
them the amount of time and money and effort and stuff I put into it, there's something pretty cool there, that I think NFTs can enable. And yeah, hopefully we'll see that pretty soon. But I really like that example.
Yeah, I hope so too, that we see that soon, because it just, like we all agree, that it just makes sense that they should function that way. Um, I I have another question that I think would be cool to hear you guys address, and that is why why do you think gamer or game developers should be interested in allowing or using ApeCoin inside of their game? Like what's the reasoning behind ApeCoin specifically?
Um, I have an answer to that, and maybe you do too, Leo. But um, I think the biggest thing is that there's a couple things. The first one is that the community behind ApeCoin and the people who are involved in like the Yuga Labs ecosystem, especially like on the user side, is probably one of the most passionate and dedicated groups of people I've ever met in my entire life,
Yeah.
that are really, really convicted to it. And that's there's this thing, your thousand true fans in like the startup world. Um, and generally those are really, really hard to come across. It takes a lot of effort to like tap into certain communities or build your own, and identify people who are that convicted, um, and interested in a certain community. And so I think one of the huge powers of the Yuga Labs ecosystem, and by association, mostly ApeCoin, is just that you have truly passionate people to test your products, try out your game, even if it's bad. But because ApeCoin, because the ape name is on it, I think it is helpful. So I think that's like one very simple piece that is super powerful, maybe more powerful than people recognize. You know, you look at like all of these games that have come out. People are playing heavy metal, and we're even hearing a lot of people say they're completely sick of it and absolutely hate it, but they're still playing.
But they're still playing.
They're right, and the reason is because the community around it and the people that they're playing with, and the fact that it's somewhat novel and there's a light at the end of the tunnel that's exciting, that's a new thing that it'll evolve into. I feel like that's the type of community and the type of thing you're tapping into when you use ApeCoin as an in-game currency. And then to take that a step further, I do think that you know, there's some other platforms out there where we've seen this happen, like Treasure DAO on Arbitrum is a good example. They had their magic token and they did extremely well. They may still be doing well. I haven't been following them too well, but or too close. But to have like this core thing that every player can kind of gravitate around, or like can be sort of like the center of the ecosystem, it sort of acts as like a hub and spoke type ecosystem where it holds all these games together and creates like this really good network effect of being able to like maintain or like use the same currency across multiple different platforms and multiple different games, because that allows like the interoperability piece where you can jump back and forth. You know, I can use ApeCoin in this game and then jump over, and my earnings from items I've sold or whatever, I can go and use it somewhere else too. And it's helpful to just have like one cohesive name in order to do that. So I think those are two of the main sort of benefits that I see of using ApeCoin within games.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like that's definitely where my head goes as far as like tapping into that player network that already is bought into the Web3 gaming world and is excited to play any game that it seems like, anyways, they're excited to play any game that is in that ApeCoin ecosystem. So I don't know. It makes sense to me. I feel like ApeCoin is going to be one of the main currencies used like throughout the metaverse for some reason. That's just like where my gut feelings are right now. Obviously, that's kind of their goal, and from how things are playing out right now, it seems like that is going to be the reality that we see, at least into the near future, and probably for for longer than I can even imagine. But Nova, do you have any insights on that as well?
No, I mean, I think Mike definitely nailed it. You know, I think the Yuga Labs community, like the ApeCoin ecosystem, I think is definitely you know, very tenacious, and they love the products that Yuga puts out. They love they love ApeCoin, and I do think that games that do, you know, incorporate ApeCoin, they'll have, you know, fans that are just there are going to try their games and give them a lot of feedback, and, you know, potentially act as evangelists for those games. Essentially, to kind of tap into this, you know, kind of grassroots community that really gets behind your product. And I think that's something, you know, that's really, you know, difficult to build on your own, especially I think as like an indie developer. Like you can just launch a game, you know, on your own. It just, you know, it's really hard to get any kind of eyes on you. So I think this definitely, I think, helps you quite a bit to kind of get at least the early traction for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and maybe it's also kind of like switch it kind of like the other way too. I also do think that, you know, like I think ApeCoin also needs game developers as well, you know, because I actually view games as kind of, I think, the primary, you know, use case for ApeCoin. Because, you know, you're probably not going to have like, you know, I don't know, like grocery stores and, you know, like, you know, gas stations integrate ApeCoin as a payment option, right? Whereas I think game developers are much more, you know, they take bigger risks than a technology, and I think game developers, they probably don't, obviously one of the few verticals, that actually would consider integrating like a cryptocurrency into their product.
Yeah, I mean that would make sense. Like I said, they're already like into the tech side of things, so and they're kind of risk takers, especially the indie developers. So that's definitely a good point too.
I think
Go
yeah.
ahead.
Before we move on too, I think there's one other thing that's really interesting that I was actually just listening to Unchained. I don't know if you guys listen to that podcast at all.
Yeah.
With Laura Shin. Yeah. I kind of almost got sick of it just because I've been listening to it for so long. But but the most recent one was really good. They were talking about just like incentives for layer twos and a bunch of different things. But one of the things they mentioned was how airdrops just don't work. Like from a business perspective, they don't work. And the reason being is because most companies are using airdrops in order to bring people onto a platform that then doesn't have any utility for the token. So basically it's like a hook to try to convince people to come. They take their tokens, and then the idea is that they stick around. But when it comes to like a traditional app or decentralized exchange or whatever DApp is trying to bring them in, it doesn't work because there isn't much of a hook once you're already there. And I think this is a theory, but I think when it comes to gaming, this is actually different. So with with ApeCoin, for example, a game may have the incentive of like, hey, if you sign up and you come play our game and try it out and you get to level 5 or something, then we drop $5 or $10 worth of ApeCoin into your wallet that you can just use within the game. And we basically give you that for free. So that's a loss leader. But I think when it comes to games, this is actually going to work because if your game is compelling enough and people actually want to play it, then you've handled like the cold start problem. So you can still incentivize people to come in because they're like, maybe they're thinking they'll just come in, take $5 and leave. Mm-hmm. But it turns out they actually enjoy the game. And so they'll stick around. Unlike typical airdrops, there's something afterwards once you've claimed the money that will keep you around. So I think that's another thing, and it's helpful for it to again just sort of be like the same brand. If everywhere you go, that you're going to get Ape. I think that's kind of cool, and it could be something that we see working out pretty well.
Yeah, I think so too. And like you said, it would be nice like to have an ecosystem of a bunch of different games that all are using ApeCoin, so that even if you do try out game XYZ and you didn't enjoy it, but you got to the point where you earned a little bit of Ape, you could then go over to a different game and you'd already have some Ape that you could put into that game if you do start enjoying it. Or like I think like just having that currency that can flow between different games is going to be nice, because like right now I don't to be honest, I don't really put a whole lot of money into any kind of game as far as like buying their currencies and stuff, but like you have to like buy that specific gem or coin or whatever it is, and it's stuck there. And typically you can't even like turn it back into US dollar or whatever you use to buy it. Like it's and then I guess it's a business model, but it just in my head it makes sense that you would want it to be some sort of cryptocurrency that you could then go and exchange it into something else that you wanted it to be, if that were the case, or you can use it in a different game, or so I don't know. I think we're definitely onto something here as far as getting ApeCoin and getting developers that can build games that gamers actually want to play. I think is probably something that's super important as well. So creating the tools that make it easy for these game developers to implement these things is going to be good long term for the whole ApeCoin ecosystem and Web3 gaming in general. I feel like we're kind of getting towards, yeah, we're almost to an hour. Do you guys want to, I know we've been all over the place per usual, but I think we've gotten a lot of good information from all the different randomness that I come up with. But do you guys want to kind of take over the stage and just put a little bow on this conversation and do whatever, if we missed anything that you think would be important for people to know about, touch on that, or whatever. You can kind of guide the end of this conversation to wherever you think we should go.
Sure. Yeah, Leo, do you have anything you want to? No, it's good. It's great. Appreciate the platform.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say that, if you're watching this and you are a part of the ApeCoin DAO, if you're not ApeCoin DAO and you're passionate about gaming, definitely do check out our AIP IDEA. It's called Platform to Enable ApeCoin Powered Payments and Rewards for Apps and Games. It went up about 5 days ago. I think we have 2 more days until it goes to draft phase, but we actually might extend the idea phase. So at this point, we're just looking to get feedback from the community. Because we do believe that feedback is great to have. I think one of the great things about Web3 is that you do get this, network of really smart people that, are able to share ideas with each other, just make the end product that much better just through iteration and feedback. So yeah, I mean, definitely check out our AIP idea. Love for you guys to provide some feedback on it, and if you have questions for us, just feel free to reach out to myself or Mike on Twitter. We're pretty much online all day, and we'll get back to you pretty quickly.
Heck yeah. And I just dropped the link to the AIP in the chat. I don't know why I didn't do that earlier. So the link is there for you guys in the chat if you want to go check out the AIP. And then if you're catching the replay, I'll make sure to have this link in the description for you as well. Because yeah, the feedback I feel like is one of the most important parts of this whole process. So go share whatever thoughts you have.
Yeah, definitely second that. Bring your hardest questions. It's up there. We're not trying to push something that's super concrete right now. We're intentionally trying to keep it kind of flexible and make sure that we do land in a place where once we make it to the draft phase or to the actual proposal, putting it up live, that it's something that everybody is excited about and wants us to build. So yeah, if you're interested in this and you have some really good questions to ask, or you just want to find out more, definitely jump on the forum, which is actually at forum.apecoin.com, I think.
Yep.
And let us know what you think. And yeah, thanks a bunch, Crafter. Really appreciate you bringing us on here, and we're excited to chat with you again in the future. Sounds like maybe independently we'll dive into some of the other stuff we're working on, but
Heck yeah.
We'll keep it focused for today.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, that's one thing that I want to start doing more of, is whenever I do see cool AIPs, because I am being very active with the ApeCoin community, and I want to bring people on the stage and just let the conversation flow about it, because it's one thing to put the words onto the paper or the screen and explain it, but people learn in different ways and also communicate in different ways. So I feel like having some sort of video format with conversation, I think will also help just spark different angles or lanes that people go down, especially during this idea phase. I think it's probably most important to have these conversations during the idea phase. Obviously, it's good to get the awareness out there too, when the vote is actually going to be happening. But I think this point is probably the most important, because this is where the actual entire idea comes together and becomes the proposal that will be getting voted on eventually. So thank you guys for coming on and just sharing more about it. And I think we definitely touched on a lot of good spots along the proposal. I know, like I said, we were all over the place, but that's how my brain works. So you guys are all just along for the ride. And shout out everyone in the chat. I didn't see any questions come through, which is totally fine. But if you do have anything, you got a couple more minutes here to drop any questions you have in the chat if you want to address those now. Or if you're catching the replay, you can drop questions there and I'll relay the questions to them if need be. But honestly, if you're catching the replay, probably go to the link. It's in the description and check it out on the forum yourself, and you can drop questions right in there for these guys. But yeah, and I'm dropping the link into the chat for everyone that's tuning in live, so you guys can get your experience points for our Listen to Earn program. And also, one of y'all is going to win 60 sand for tuning in. Thank you, Sandbox, for sponsoring the sand giveaways that we get to do on these Listen to Earn shows. And I will, I'm going to announce the winner. I'm trying this out. We'll see how it goes. But I'm going to announce the winner inside of the Discord, so I don't have to fumble through all the process of getting your guys' names moved over to the drawing and everything. So make sure you get inside our Discord, and shout out Hodl for telling me I needed to set this up. If you type Discord !Discord into the chat, it should send you the link to our Discord. So get inside there, and I will announce the winner in there in a few minutes after the show ends. And the secret word for today, Hodl's on top of it. Secret word for today is going to be, I haven't thought of it yet, but let's go with something simple, and let's do ApeCoin. So ApeCoin is the secret word for today. Fill that in so I know that you're actually here and listening, and didn't just find this form somewhere floating around the internets. But yeah, and with all that being said, if either of you guys have anything else you would like to add to the end of the show, go for it. Otherwise, it was great having you guys on here. I appreciate y'all.
Awesome being here. We'll both be in Miami this weekend, so if you want to chat in person, get a drink. Yeah, hopefully we run into. I'll be running around with an other page shirt with my ape on the back, which is the pilot ape. So hopefully you can find me. But yeah.
Heck yeah, have fun in Miami. That I'm bummed that I'm not going to be there. For those of you that don't know, it's what do you call it? The Mutant Fest? Is that
the technical term is Fuck It Weekend.
I was gonna say I know what they're calling it, but it's kind of like Mutant Ape Fest. But yeah, fuck it
Yeah,
Friday through Sunday. So yeah, I'm sure it's gonna be a lot of fun.
Time. Yeah, wish you could be there with us, but we'll get you there next time.
I was gonna say I'll watch your guys' socials, and I'll pretend like I'm there. But yeah, you guys are gonna have a blast. Secret word is ApeCoin, ApeCoin. But yeah, thank you guys so much for coming on, and I'm going to keep an eye on this proposal as it moves through the process. Oh, before I forget, my proposal, it actually might be live right now. I think 8 p.m. Central Time. My AIP 290 for having the ApeCoin DAO sponsor the Metaverse podcast network that I'm creating is up for vote starting today. I think it was 8 p.m. Central Time. So it is live right now. So if you guys are watching this and you want to go check that out and give me that yes vote, hopefully, if you like what I have written up there, I would appreciate it. And if you want to pass it on to anyone else that you think would be interested, that would be appreciated as well. So thank y'all. Can I write? Yeah, I'll type the secret word for you guys. I didn't realize ApeCoin was confusing. ApeCoin. There y'all go. Cool. Well, thanks again, guys, for coming on. It's been a blast. per usual. And I will see MIKR, you'll be on the show here in a couple weeks, and we're still working on getting Nova on, but you guys will be able to get to know each of these guys a little bit better.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
Thank you, Capture. I appreciate having us, and have a great night, man.
Heck yeah. You guys have a great night too. And like I said, I'll catch y'all guys on the next episode. And if you put a space, it's okay. Peace.
Peace.